Welcome to part 10 of my series of videos of building the DJH G5 kit, and today we are going to do, unsurprisingly, page 10. Now, page 10 is basically fitting the Westinghouse pump, if your locomotive indeed has a Westinghouse pump, and finishing off the front of the smoke box. Although we're not going to do that, I'm going to leave that for a bit later, because if you remember, I said the last time, there is a speaker going to go in here, and it's easier to leave the front of the smoke box off for the moment while we do that. So what I've done, we've got a white metal casting for the Westinghouse pump. All the pipe work is 0.5mm, so I've drilled the necessary holes in this 0.5. The other thing that I've done prior to doing this, and this is a little bit tricky, is that I've done the lubricators. Hold on, let's get a dark background. So I've done, so there's the autofocus. Well, I've done the lubricators. There are two port lubricators that need fitting, and you use 0.4mm wire. These brass castings are quite hard, so you might have a little bit of difficulty drilling them out, but I did manage to drill them out using a 0.45mm drill to take the 0.4mm wire, and there you can see they are. And the other thing that we need to do is this valve. It's sort of like a T-shape. So there's the auto. Come on, autofocus. There you go. There's a T-shape valve, this bit here. This is part number L11, Lima 11. And it looks to be like a steam distribution valve. It's quite obvious in photographs of the G5. And this is where your Yeadon or whatever you've managed to find comes into its own. So let's see if you can just about see it's there. So that is the valve, and there is also something else that you need to consider with the Westinghouse pump, is going back to this picture again, this pipe here. Well, I've looked at any number of photos of this locomotive and this type of locomotive, and this pipe goes into the smoke box in a number of different places. So be aware that when you do this, you really need a picture of your chosen locomotive to get it looking accurate. This one is high up, just under the relief valve. My one, it's down here, which is what it says in the instructions. So what we'll do, I'll reposition the camera. I've got the big greyhound with me today. I'll reposition the camera and we'll crack on. Okay, so we're going to fit various bits, and what we're going to do, we're going to work from the inside outwards. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to fit the lubricators, which I've removed from the fret using the sharp cutters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill with a pin vise rather than a Dremel, because the holes are quite close to some of the fine casting on the boiler. So I'm going to drill the holes 1.2 as said in the instructions. Now on this side where the pump is, if you're not fitting the pump, you use the bottom hole that would be the pump, but I'm going to fit the pump. And as an alternative, you can maybe just about see that there is a hole. There's a hole over here, right near the edge of the tank. That is the alternate hole for the lubricator on the side that the pump is, and it is very close to the edge of the casting, so don't worry too much if when you drill through it breaks through, because that will be concealed when you fit the part. So I'll just smooth that down because it did break through. And we'll just try the fit. So that side fits okay. What we'll do is we'll just take it out and we'll bend the wires, and then we'll solder it in place from behind. So we'll just check, see if we can find a decent picture in here, rather than refer to the instructions. Okay, so we've bent the wires, and we'll fit this one back. And we'll solder it from behind. So we've soldered it and soldered the wires to the tank side, and I'll just snip the excess off. And that doesn't look too bad. Try and keep the lubricator level. Don't worry too much about the pipes. So we'll do the other side. So I'll bend that side and we'll just solder these in place. Yes, this is a little awkward to do, I must admit. Okay, that was pretty difficult. So I've managed to do it with a little bit of colourful language and a burnt fingertip. But of course you don't have to solder these parts. You can super glue them in, and on reflection, super glue might actually be the better option for this. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to fit the Westinghouse pump. So if you remember right back from part 1, I mentioned that the G5s were strange in that not all of them were fitted with well, certainly when they were built, they weren't built with vacuum brakes, they were built with air brakes, and they had no steam brake for the locomotive. They were all air braked, so they were air braked for the train and they were air braked for the locomotive. And in later years, some of the locomotives had vacuum brakes fitted. This is one of them, or this will be one of them, and it retained the air brakes for the locomotive. So we'll just put the two parts together. So it's coming along very nicely, it looks nice. So now what we're going to do, I'll just rest it on here so you can see it don't rock. What we're going to do is we are going to start fitting the Westinghouse pump. So like I mentioned, I've drilled out the holes 0.5mm, and there's loads of 0.5mm wire in the kit, but you will also need 0.4, which is the very thin wire, because there's a part, fitting a part is missing in the instructions. This T part, if you can see, it's actually got 3 ports on it. There's a small port here, and that is quite obvious on the in photographs that there is, that pipe does go somewhere. So what we'll do first is we will fit the pump. We'll solder the pump, make sure you get it the right way up. These bits go on the top, so there's a sort of a tank shaped bit that goes on the top, and we'll do that first. Solder it in place. We'll just take it apart so that we can get inside. So be very careful when you do this. If you've soldered your lubricator in place, you don't want to unsolder it. And that's in place. Right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to fit this T-piece, and we will look at a picture again. Find a picture of a G5. There it is. We'll cut the small part off the fret, and we'll just dress it up a bit. And make sure you get this the right way around, so the extra port needs to face towards the front of the locomotive. So what I've done when I drilled this out, I drilled it all the way through, so I can put the wire through, all the way through. So we'll just solder that in place. Like that, and you need to leave a reasonable amount on this end, because that's got to go into the upper port in the back of the Westinghouse pump. So the other thing that I've done as well, and it's also very evident from a lot of photographs, that there was a support bracket for this part. So what I've done is I've got a thin piece of scrap brass, and what we're going to do, we're going to solder that to the handrail. And it needs to be reasonably close to the pump, so about there do. If for some reason this soldering isn't taking, so I'll clean it up a bit. So referring to your picture, now we need to make a bend in this pipe. And make it bend the other way. No, we were right the first time. It'll probably break this time. Yes. We'll just move it along slightly. Just measure it off. Preferably without dropping it again. Okay, I've done it, but I had to have a little bit of a rethink on how it fits, because these pipes are supposed to go behind that vertical support. So the easiest thing to do is to fit both the wires to the T-shaped valve and then pre-bend them and then fit them afterwards so that you get the routing of the parts correct. So anyway, that bit's done, and all there is now, there's a few more pipes to fit, which we'll do quickly. Of course, if you don't want to bother with the extra detail like I did there, you don't have to fit them. Right, so some 0.5 wire. I think it'd probably be worth your while pre-bending the other wires as well. don't get too hung up about the pipe work for these bits. Like I said, there were 110 of these locomotives, and you look at the pictures and they're all different where the pipes go. Just do something that you feel comfortable with and looks okay. So I'm not going to bother too much about this pipe. So it's supposed to go below that. Right, so we've got our rough shape, and we'll just solder this in place quickly. It shouldn't take long to do. We'll solder this one inside. I'll just trim that bit off. and then the last bit is the bit underneath. Just trim that off a bit. So there we have all the pipe work for the Westinghouse pump, and the last thing to do here are the handrails, which is 0.7 wire. We'll just do those quickly, and for that we'll just put the two halves of the foot plate and that together. And that's the 2 tank handrails done as well. So as far as, we'll just check the instructions, because we're not going to do the smoke box front today because we've got to fit the DCC. And so what we have done is we have fitted the two port lubricators, the other one's behind the pump. We fitted the Westinghouse pump and the wiring, and the pipe work, fed it into the cab, and we have fitted the tank handrails. And so that is almost it. So we have quite a nice looking locomotive. All we really need to do now is fit the smoke box front. We fit the speaker for the DCC before we do that, and then all we've got to do after that is page 11 of the instructions, which we will do maybe the next time or maybe the time after, which is all the pipe work for the vacuum and the steam heating and the supports. So thank you for watching part 10, and look out for the part 11 or 10A or whatever I decide to call it, where we'll finish off the smoke box front, we'll fit the DCC speaker, and we'll crack on from there. And it is almost finished. Thank you for watching.